In today's video, I want to touch on something which I was sort of triggered by in a recent F-Stoppers article I wrote. Someone in the comments somewhere said, yeah, but you can't make money in photography anymore. It's not like when I was a professional before I had to retire. Newspapers were paying big money. Nowadays, cameras are cheap. Everyone's got a phone. It's impossible. And I see these sorts of comments a lot, and I completely disagree with them, and I don't think anything's actually changed. So I want to talk about why people can't make it as photographers, these hurdles or mental blocks they have which stop them from doing it. And hopefully if you have any reason why you think there's no money left in photography, pop it in the comments below, because I'd like to try and address that as well and sort of help you navigate these things. Now, first up is a real brutal one, is that they're not good enough. And this is horrible to say, but some people just aren't good enough, and some people will never be good enough. I have tried and tried to learn how to spell words, and my grammar is awful, my punctuation is awful, I'm dyslexic as well, which doesn't help. I'm never going to be good at writing. I've accepted that. I've got myself to a point now where I have a system where I am proficient, but apart from writing about photography, where I happen to have a big knowledge, so it sort of lends itself to that, and having a proofreader, I'm not going to be writing a novel anytime soon. I've made peace with that. Quite like to be a writer, actually. I think I have some okay ideas, which is probably the Dunning-Kruger effect of not knowing that my ideas are... Anyway, but I'm not going to. It's never going to happen. Now, following on from this, so there's two camps of these people. There's those that will never be good enough and those who haven't worked enough to be good enough. And they just think, got a camera, reasonably okay, let's give it a crack. You're only going to make money if you're good. And that has always been the same. Granted, back in the day, the final outcome wasn't as good. You know, the image quality wasn't as good. The production wasn't as big and grandiose, and the abilities weren't all there because technology's moved along, but it was just as hard back then. As we move through the generations, we pick up the basics quicker and quicker, and the technology makes it easier and easier. And nowadays, it's all about concept and execution rather than just being able to expose something. Now, for every bad photography teacher out there, there are a million bad business advisors. I have started getting adverts targeted at photographers on YouTube where they're sort of talking about, it's basically some scheme they buy into where they sell some 5-point marketing thing. This is all nonsense. Don't buy into this sort of gibberish. It doesn't help. Marketing, yes, there is a skill to it. Yes, there are some real things that you must be doing, but you're not going to buy it for $200 on the internet. So you must get good advice. You must get advice from the right people, people who are successful photographers, who do have successful photography businesses, not people whose business is giving business advice. Those people don't know anything about business. There's a reason they give advice and don't actually have a business. Find someone who's giving the advice and has a business. It's hard to find them, but it'll be worth it in the long run. Now, this is a big one, and this one's quite relevant to me recently. Isn't it, Moggy? Yeah. And that is, you must pivot. And pivot's a bit of a buzzword at the moment. Kind of triggers me a bit nowadays. I don't like buzzwords, but there we go. Pivoting is important, and I've recently made a big business decision to go with somebody else who does pivot and to work with some other people who are currently pivoting over working with some other traditional people. And that's because I see that now is going to be a huge change in the industry. We're just coming off the back of a pandemic. We're going to have a huge recession. Things are going to change. We're not going to be working in the way that we were. We've got to pivot. And this is particularly true for those people going, back in the 80s and 90s, if I got a celebrity picture, I might get £1,000. You're not going to get that anymore because everyone's got Instagram, there's pictures everywhere. It doesn't matter. But what we do have is social media advertising, and it is everywhere, and people will pay good money for that. You just need to shift what you're doing. If you still want to take celebrity pictures, you just have to accept you're not going to make as much money as if you start shooting online campaigns. And yes, there's cheap ones, but there's also really high-end ones. I've been paid big money for an Instagram post, like silly money for an Instagram post, because it was so important and complex, and we had to get it so like bang on for their marketing. And to them, it was worth hundreds of thousands. So it's important to pivot and just to see that times are changing and to go with it. I've recently started directing film. And when I say film, that's a grandiose thing to say. It's more small adverts, rarely over a few seconds. But I've started directing that sort of thing. And that's me pivoting. I'm not going to become a videographer or a DOP, but doing that is not too far from what I do as a photographer anyway. They're very similar roles. So I'm pivoting there. Now, the next thing is that people just don't give it the time. And you've probably seen my video about how long does it take to get good at photography. It takes a while. And that includes business. That also takes a while. I was better at photography than I was at business by several years. My photography is several years ahead of my business nous. Nous? Jesus, you look angry. You've got those eyes. Oh no. Yeah, there we go. There she goes. Ooh. It's going to take a while. Most people give it 2 years, 5 years, 6 years. That's not going to cut it. You have to give it a good decade of trying and persistently trying until you know that it's going to work or not work. I've had so many DMs from people going, I'm just not getting any work. I've been trying this for 2 years. It's just not working. And you have to think of this. A photography graduate in the UK has had 3 years at university. The majority of them wouldn't be able to assist me in a student. Moggy! And you have to think of it like this. A photography graduate has spent 3 years at university in the UK. 99% of those would not be at a skill level to be able to assist in my studio. 1% might rocket through to being a big-time pro straight away, but they're the exception. After that, they're probably going to have to, on average, take 2 years of sort of assisting. After that, they're going to have to spend a couple of years trying to get some assisting work. And after that, they're 5 years in, then maybe a couple of years of shooting small local jobs. What were we there? 7, 5, 6, 7 years in. 8, 9 years in, they might be able to assist somewhere like this, where we need people who know what they're actually doing, unless they're particularly quick at learning, whatever it may be. And 10 years, they might be shooting big jobs. That's vaguely how it goes. If you've not given it that time, you're thinking of sacking it off now, you've not given it long enough, basically. So you need to decide, can I give it more time? Do I have the resources, the patience, or is it not really that important and I can go and do something else that I'll be just as happy doing? And that's a tough choice. So these are the reasons that I think most people don't make it as photographers. Let me know in the comments below what you think. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you think any of the things that I've mentioned are wrong, or perhaps I've not quite explained it right, let me know. And I'll make sure I read all of those, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.